Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome to the first interview of the CD7 Meet the Candidates series. In case you aren't familiar with who I am, I'm Nicole Hammer, and I'm the president of the Volusia Young Democrats. And I'm joined by my vice president, Gavin Cox.
Hi.
Um, Also joining us is Haley Donahue from the Young Democrats of Seminole County. She's the president of that organization. So we've partnered together. As you know, the CD7 seat encompasses both the Volusia and the Seminole counties. So our goal is just to make sure that people are able to hear from the candidates before they go out and vote. Election day is going to be on August 20th, so you're able to vote anytime from now if you vote by mail, up until August 20th, which will be election day. We ask that the answers are no longer than 5 minutes, to be able to ask more questions and to also be able to receive questions from the audience. As you see, is more than just our executive board. We're actually joined by a lot of different folks, and by a lot, I mean 3. Um, so, Allek, if you would like to go ahead and kick us off about yourself and why you're running for office.
Sure. No, thanks. Thanks for having me. Again, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Allek Pastrana, and I'm running to represent you in Congress in Congressional District 7. First, let me start off by saying that every Sunday I weigh myself, and so far I've lost 60 pounds. So, why is that important? Because I was recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And if it weren't for my insurance, I would not be able to afford the $1,200 a month shot of Ozempic that has drastically changed my life. Since taking this life-changing medicine, I have managed again to lose 60 pounds. I have become more active with my 2 fantastic kids, Mia and Mateo. Um, so real fast, I always make this comparison. If you guys heard about it already, feel free to laugh or not. But Mia and Mateo, do you know what that makes them? That makes them my little M&Ms. So it's my favorite candy. I haven't been able to eat it since I've been diagnosed with type 2. I've been watching the carbs, watching the sugar, and that's how I've managed to lose the 60 pounds so far. But my story is not unique, right? When I've done call time, knocking on doors, constituents in District 7 have told me the same thing, that sometimes they have to pick between taking the medicine they need to survive or putting food on the table. One of the 3 main goals that I want to accomplish when I'm in office is to reform our healthcare system into a Medicare for all system, where individuals receive their healthcare they need without being financially burdened. Healthcare should not be tied to your employment. That's very important. Also, we must keep government out of the patient room and the bedroom. I'm a big supporter of her body, her choice. I've been since last cycle. That was one of my main goals this cycle as well. I have 3 younger sisters and a daughter, so I'm the big older brother and very protective when it comes to my sisters. Think about how protective I'll be with your families. I want to champion and go beyond and do everything I can to make Roe the 20th Amendment of our Constitution. It won't be an easy task, but with your support, we can achieve the end goal. I want to make sure no future generations go through the same issue that they went through 50 years ago and what we're going through now in 2024. Lastly, I want to work on the economy, stop the taxation of Social Security, legalize and federally tax marijuana so we can increase the salaries of teachers and first responders and tackle the housing insurance crisis. Studies have shown that Florida by itself leaves $100 million on the table minimum yearly. You times that by 50 plus our territories, and we can start to chip away our nation's debt. Again, we can raise teacher and first responder salaries and afford programs like Medicare for all and free college 2 or 4 years for all as well. Again, 3 topics to remember. I will champion access to affordable healthcare and keep government out of the patient room and the bedroom. I will champion raising the minimum age or the minimum wage and providing a livable wage, stop taxing Social Security, and legalize marijuana. And I'm the only one in my race that's been talking about this, but I will champion Roe into be the 20th Amendment of our Constitution. Again, her body, her choice, very important.
Thank you so much. That sounded great. Out of those top 3 priorities, would one of those be the first thing you plan to do while you're in office? Other than that, what would be the first thing you plan to do in office?
First thing I plan to do is to start the process of making sure that reproductive rights are secured. I want to make sure that, again, my three younger sisters, my daughter, and all future all women, or everybody who is of birthing is properly protected per our Constitution and doesn't have to go through any of the issues that we've seen in the past. Again, her body, her choice. That's the main goal, the main objective when it comes to one of the first things I want to do and take care of and start that ball rolling. Again, when you go to Congress, you're elected for 2 years, and usually they say the first year you put bills on the floor, and then the kind of like the halfway point to year two, you're essentially back to campaign mode again, which I think that's crazy, but that's the game we have to play. So.
Yeah, thank you. So our next question would be, what do you see as the top priority for our district, CD7?
Really, for the district, top priority besides reproductive right would be the economy, the housing insurance crisis. I mean, it should not be a crime to be homeless. In Seminole County, we have so many homeless kids, which I didn't know was a thing until last cycle, but it's not really talked about that much. We right now is raised up to, and hey, correct me if I'm wrong, about 3,200 kids that are without shelter. And with what's happening in Florida here, it's if you're homeless, you should not be. It's not illegal to be homeless. You're just, again, fall out hard times, whatever. We got to help those individuals, make sure that we make sure that they're safe and secure, and two, make sure that we can, put a roof over their heads. I mean, we can look into programs like, more grants and stuff, but from a building standpoint, I would love to see 3D printed homes and houses come to the district, because this 3D printed houses use cement. They're very, very stable, self-sufficient, hurricane resistant, and it costs about $10,000 to $11,000 to make. They sell the houses for what, 40, 50, 60, 70,000, I believe, tops. I would love to own my home for 70,000. And that's when you own a home, you start to build generational wealth. And as a millennial, and for everyone after me as well, I know how difficult it is to save up for that down payment, to pay for the mortgage. But then again, rent has gone up so much that I remember when I was 18 and I rented my first place, it was $650 a month. Now it's pushing $1,800, and that was for a 1-1. So, besides that, student loan debt. Let's talk about that real fast from an economist standpoint. It was on pause for the whole pandemic. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. You know what? If they want to, we can use some of that money from taxation of marijuana and pay it off. But it needs to go. That and medical debt as well. So at least the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration has introduced, or I believe we executive power made it so that healthcare debt cannot show up on your credit report, because once it affects your credit, it's there for 7.5 years. And then that kind of stunts you from either renting or even affording, a mortgage. Depends on the scenario. So hopefully that answered your question, Gavin.
It answered it fairly well, although I'm not Gavin. For our next question, how do you plan on involving young people like the members of the Young SemDems and Young Dems of Volusia into your campaign? And how do you plan on involving us during your congressional term?
Oh, great question. So, during the campaign, volunteers, paying people, paying staffers, right now we have a mixture of boots on the ground, people who are calling, individuals in the district. Once I get elected, then I'm going to have an actual proper budget to pay people what I believe is a fair share, $20 an hour, provide healthcare benefits, and staff. Going to have an office in Volusia County, have an office in Seminole County, as well as have a staff up in DC. When you're elected, you get essentially, I want to say, like a $1.7 million budget for 2 years to take care of all that stuff. So having people my age and younger part of the campaign, part of the administration, essentially, once I get elected, it brings a different, how do I want to say, viewpoint, right? I want to make sure I hire people that are not afraid to tell me no. If you can't tell me no, I don't want you on my team. I need people who are not only dedicated, but are willing to call me out like, hey, Allek, that's wrong. Hey, Allek, maybe we should do X, Y, and Z. There's sessions like when I'm finishing up my master's right now, I literally do like a, a diagram, essentially pros and cons, or bubble charts, whatever. And if someone can't speak up when I say an idea and they can't be truthful with me, then they should not be part of the team. Everybody who I would bring on would be hand selected, vetted, handpicked by me, because there's already a few spots that I believe that are people that would be great choices. But on the end of the day, it's up to them. Do they want to do that travel to DC? Again, you're 6 months in DC, essentially you're 6 months in the district. If not, then let's have you at one of our locations. Either one in Seminole County or at our office in Seminole County, taking care of the constituents and helping gather information there, or likewise in Volusia County. So that's how I would incorporate not only young Dems, but also I want to have a mix of individuals throughout the spectrum, essentially, of different age groups, because again, it's not just young Dems or millennials, Gen Z. There's a lot of people in the district. A few people that I already know who would be great for different positions. But when it comes to, again, young Dems, I want to make sure that the people are able to, like you, for example, Haley, you've never been someone that's been shy to say something, and you will be someone that will be great, a great addition. But again, it goes by not only my choice, but your choice as well. Do you want to be part of it? Do you want to, do X, Y, and Z? Again, the travel portion, the constant meetings, so on and so forth. It depends on what that individual wants. So, it'll be great to sit down with millennials, Gen Zs, and so on and so forth, and say, hey, this is what the position entails. Let's talk about where you want to go in life, because one of the main things I want to make sure when someone joins a team is they understand that they're not stuck there, right? I've been in positions where employers were like, oh, there was no advancement, right? I want to make sure that people know that they're wanted and there's advancement. And if there's the advancement means that you have to leave the team, I will never say no, don't go, because that's selfish. Any boss who tells you that, I found out early on in my career, that's a selfish boss. You should always, your employer or your boss should always want you to progress in your career and to go forward in your career. So.
All right. Thank you so much. And also thank you for saying that about me.
Awesome. You had already kind of answered the question I was about to ask. So I'm gonna just kind of add my own spice to it. And this has not been vetted at all. So the question was, a good leader is someone that is a good manager. In your congressional office, how would you ensure that staff in your administration are fairly treated and compensated? I would also like to add, what is your approach to that management style?
Yeah, so I mean, management style. I'm currently quote unquote manager now, and my management style is, as long as you get your job done, it doesn't bother me. Family comes first, 100%, full stop. As someone that has a family, someone who has had to run for emergencies, I understand what it's like. I'm never going to be one that's going to be like, oh, you know what? You weren't here for, only 38 hours, so I'm going to dock you 2 hours from now. No, none of that. As long as you get your job done, that's really all I care about. And again, it goes back to having the good connection with the team. If someone is constant, fighting with somebody, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it like an adults, and if push comes to shove and, someone has to let go, then, I will do everything in my power to make sure that that person, one, has a place to go to, But two, just make sure that everyone on the team is happy and we proceed forward, right? That's the type of manager I am. From a compensation standpoint, again, just making sure that someone is fairly compensated for their time and especially their travel as well, because some people, I know Nicole, since you're traveling now, I remember when I used to travel every other week or sometimes 2 or 3 weeks out of the month. It's not just the flight time, it's also the driving to the airport 2 to 3 hours early, depends on it's an international flight. Connections. Then once you get to your destination, having to travel to that hotel, and different time zones, stuff of that nature. I want to make sure people are properly compensated for their time, and people understand that from a salary standpoint, that I'm looking after them, because not only have you made the decision to join Team Pastrana when we go to DC, you essentially become part of the family. Typical, if you want to do the meme, and nothing is stronger than family type of deal. But that's just the way I am. I make sure that people taken care of, making sure if someone says, hey, I gotta go because I'm sick, hey, I stay home, especially with the age of COVID, stay home. I don't want to get sick, especially with kiddos and stuff. Or if you can't travel, it's understandable. We will corrupt the Slack. Just do what you can here, and we'll be in touch. We'll communicate. But that's how I am from a manager for my day to day. I have a few employees that report to me. Just get your job done, and we're good. When it comes to bonus time or when it comes to yearly reviews, they get fours, they get fives. I'm not afraid to give them. I won't ever say oh, you did good, but you're going to get a 3, so no raise. No, that's a no go for me. So.
All right. Okay. I was going to say ask about questions in the comments before moving on, but that's already been answered. Never mind. As you know, my parents are both teachers, and I work with the Seminole County Teachers Unions. Would you be willing to fight for better working conditions and raises for teachers? And if so, what are your plans to do that in office?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, again, in the legalization, the federal legalization of marijuana, I'm talking about using that tax money from each state to raise the salaries of teachers and first responders. And I should probably rephrase that when I say raise. In addition, so essentially, whatever you're getting paid now, have an additional on top of that, based off those revenues, and have a fund built in each state for that, because I know teachers that take money out of their paychecks just to make sure that the kids in the classroom have crayons or pencils or so on and so forth. Nothing should ever come out of a teacher's pocket. I've never been part of a union because I've never had the opportunity to in my line of work. But I remember when I was in high school, senior year, my dad, he retired from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and he was part of a union. The issue was that when you're in a federal prison, it takes you anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes to go from your car through constant checkpoints to get to your desk. So if your clock-in time is 8 o'clock, they want you to start this time at 7:30 and voluntarily make your way through the checkpoints to get to your desk to be at 8. And that's, to me, is unacceptable, because again, it goes back to the whole making sure that people are properly compensated for their time. So they went and fought for the union. The union fought for them. They won a legal court battle against the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and there was so much back pay for everybody that it was, let's just say, it was a good Christmas that year. I remember that because I was 17, or I turned 18 that year. So I know the importance, I understand the importance of unions, because when it comes to one person, it's kind of difficult to have change in a workplace. But when you get an organized group and you unionize, then they have to listen to you. Otherwise, no work is going to get done. So I understand the importance of unions, and I fully support unions. All my stuff that's printed is unionized this cycle, because last cycle it was difficult to find people to print. due to raise money. This cycle is things have changed, things are different. Every material I printed, even my yard signs are union. So that's something to be key about as well.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll now take some questions from the audience. We do already have one in the chat. Teresa had a question on, if you do win the primary, what do you think it will take for your campaign to be successful against the Republicans and Corey Mills?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, there's a lot of Republicans who don't like Corey Mills. You know, I've knocked on split households, which means there's either one Democrat, one Republican, or MPA Democrats, so on and so forth. And people can't stand him. He's done nothing for the country, nothing for the nation, nothing for the district. You know, he's a veteran and he's voted against veteran issues up and down. What would it take for my campaign to be successful against Republican Corey Mills? I mean, against the Republicans, I mean, there's already a lot of them that even told me at the candidate forum that that was Republican led, that they will vote for me once I get to the general. Against Corey Mills, call him out on stuff, just like I want to hold everybody accountable. You know, if he doesn't want to debate, we're still going to hold debates. We're still going to put up 2 podiums, and we're going to put he didn't show. We got to hold people accountable for their actions and for their not actions. You know what? You know, I remember last cycle, Corey Mills said that when he ran, when he get elected, he was gonna start donating his yearly salary because he's quote unquote supposedly a millionaire, because he's he's an arms dealer. He doesn't tell us who he sells arms to. Has anyone seen reports of who he's donating this money to? Has he donated the money? We got to hold people accountable for their actions. You know, from FEC reports, you know, people who are not clear on that, to, hey, does he actually live in the state of Florida? You know, there's multiple news organizations that have reached out to me. Hey, do you know anything about Corey Mills not living in the state of Florida? I'm like, yeah, they talked about it last cycle. They said that he was a roamer essentially. And if you're a so-called millionaire, why is he renting a place out of New Smyrna? That right now there's reports coming on. I got some insider information that, you know, there's no water bill. How can you live somewhere and there's no water bill? So it's going to be interesting to see once all the stuff drops. I think they're holding it until the primary, if he wins the primary, because he has a primary as well. Yeah, just hit him with the facts, call him out on every step. I mean, you know, since you guys are, I'm not sure if you guys know about the townhouse here in Oviedo, but he stopped there just to have some coffee. And there was Republicans that were irked that he was there, and they left. And they, you know, there's places that don't want him around. So if they don't want him around, even just to have coffee or breakfast, you know, it's going to be an easy win against Corey.
Awesome. Is there anyone else that had any questions for Allek?
Yeah, I'll go. Personal question as it relates to me, but what is your plan to protect and enshrine the rights of LGBTQ citizens?
So, as the only one in the race that's been endorsed by the Florida LGBTQ plus caucus, I'm an ally, 100% will be, always will give free dad hugs to whoever needs it. I usually also wear a free dad hug shirt when I go to rallies and parades. Rights for LGBTQ plus. One of the things I want to do is introduce the definition of marriage act, right? Definition of marriage says that it's between 2 consenting adults over the age of 18. So you're probably wondering, what does that do or why? That covers LGBTQ plus individuals. And, you know, if anyone here has ever heard one of my previous speeches, there is a senator called Senator Mike Moon. Does anyone know where Senator Mike Moon is from? Yep, you probably wouldn't. He's from oh, now I forgot. He's either Kansas or Arkansas, one of those two. Anyways, they're trying to lower the minimum age of marriage from 17 down to 12. So, and then you start looking up how many states have marriages that are allowed under the age of 18. And it's what, 36, 35, 36, I think, states that allow it. Missouri, yes, thank you. Thank you. So we're the United States of America. We should not have any child brides or any forced marriages, stuff of that nature. So that's one of the first things I want to do is to essentially take care of those two groups, make sure that there's no, and any bill I introduce, I want to make sure that there's no misinterpretation down the road. Fun fact: you do not write your own bills. You don't. You submit, kind of the idea, and they kind of write them for you. But I'm gonna be clear cut and clear cut and say, hey, no, I wanted to say X, Y, and Z as clear as it can be, so that there's no misinterpretation going forward. So again, that's what I would do. That would be one of my first bills I want to introduce to protect the LGBTQ plus community and to stop the child bride situation that's going on in the United States.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Given the importance of the St. John River to our local environment and economy, what specific actions or policies do you plan to implement to protect and improve the health of the river?
Oh, great question. So I've also been endorsed by the Democratic Environmental Caucus as well. So when it comes to the rivers, right? So, especially with that river you mentioned, and also down here in Seminole County, it's really mind-boggling to me that there's been no action that's occurred, or little to no action, with the Supreme Court essentially gutting the DEA from being able to act. I want to sit down with them, with the scientists, the actual scientists, and ask them, what do we need for you guys to get your job done? What things do you need? What tools do you need to make sure this gets enforced? And why haven't you reported to Florida? Why haven't you reported to CD7? There's people that's been reporting, illegal dumping from different places, or the cancer situations happening in Seminole County due to the forever chemicals, or even where's the update about the, I'm sure you guys heard about the hot tub temperatures on the coast, or the fish swimming upside down. All these items, right? We need to work with the actual scientists and follow the science, find out what they need, what from a DE standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, and ask them, hey, what do you need? We need to pass this. Okay, cool. You need X, Y, and Z. Let's go forward. I won't pretend to be a scientist. I won't pretend to know more than I know about the environment. I'm gonna listen to the experts on that aspect, because that's what you have to do. You gotta, when you're going for a position like this, you're actually in a leadership position, regardless of if it's even your first time in Congress. You got to know when to lead and when to follow, and when to sit down and shut up and listen. And that's what you need to do. I will sit down, shut up, and listen to the experts, and then say, okay, let's these are all great. Let's get it done. Let's work together, and let's make sure that you guys have the tools you need to make sure you're successful. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to that, I also think about the managerial aspect as well. You always want to set up someone for success, never for failure. And that's what I plan to do.
Thank you.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Allek?
I actually have one more question. So with you talking about experts kind of just reminded me of it, but like with some of the recent Supreme Court decisions and taking the power away from experts and the various departments of the government and stuff like that, are you for expanding the court or doing something to limit the power that these Supreme Court members currently have?
Great question. So first, accountability, right? There's another report that came out today that said that Clarence Thomas took another trip to somewhere. It's incredible to me that all these justices came from the federal bench where there was a code of ethics. But once you get to the Supreme Court, there's no code of ethics? I'm sorry, what? At any level, at any other level, there's always a code of ethics. And if you break or do something illegal, you get referred to the bar of your state, and then you get put up in front of a board. So first and foremost, I'm all for, if the Biden-Harris campaign can set up a code of ethics, I'm all for that. Clarence Thomas was actually one of my first targets once I got to DC, because, but two, expand the courts. Yes. So one of the reasons why the Supreme Court was established is to take care of each one of the judicial districts. And right now there's 13, but there's only 9 judges. So, and we've had as much as 15, 16, 17, I want to say, 15, 16. So I wouldn't be opposed to expand the court up to 13, max 15, because when you go to federal court, at least the times I've been, there's always a panel of 5 judges, right? So think about how many more cases that they can have on their docket if there's a panel of 5 judges hearing the cases per se, and then everybody else can dissent or agree, whatever. But the point is to get more out of the Supreme Court without someone being able to buy a Supreme Court justice. So and it's funny because you got Clarence Thomas, who's taking all these lavish trips and vacations. You got Gorsuch, who magically had $1 million mortgage house just magically disappear, and no one's asked a question about this. Why not? Why not? We got to hold people accountable. It doesn't matter if you run for office, if you're the president of the United States, or if you're SCOTUS. Everyone is held accountable to the people. You're there to represent the people, not yourself. You're not there to enrich yourself. No, and that's why I'm all for as well the no stocks for people who are in Congress. You get insider information, even if it's a day or two early. That's no, like, I just will never understand how. Well, I do understand because the terminology of insider information, but still, if you're making the laws, you should not be able to profit from them. That's where I stand on that.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Did anyone else have any questions for Allek?
Yeah, I have one last question. And it's kind of like irrelevant, but it's something I kind of more personally know that you mentioned earlier. So you mentioned having an office in Volusia if you were elected. And so if that were to happen, where in Volusia would you plan on having that?
Great question. I would want it to be centralized. So essentially, look on the map and see, from Deltona to Port Orange, where's the central meet point, and go from there, because I feel like people should have access to your representatives. Also, having like a mobile office or making sure that we go out to the community is very important, because you gotta get out there and talk to the people and see, hey, what's going on, what issues are you experiencing in your day-to-day life, how can we help. And I think that's important, to get out there and knock on doors, make phone calls, and make sure that you still talk to your constituents. There's no, when it comes to me, there's no out of reach, or who's Gavin, yeah, whatever, he's whatever. It doesn't work like that. Like everybody I met, I may not reckon or remember your names. Oh, everyone here I do, but like out there, when I'm knocking on doors, names, no faces. I'm a face person. So if I see somebody, I'm like, oh, I met that person before. Oh, okay, I remember where. And then it starts to remind myself, what we talked about, so on and so forth. And there's been people out there that I've knocked doors on, and they're like, oh, you remember me? Like, yeah, I remember you. I might not remember your name. Actually, I kind of cheat, because I have a paper that says who's who, or van or whatever. But I proceeded like, yeah, we talked about X, Y, and Z. I remember we talked about Marvel and how you don't like DC, or so on and so forth. And we just again, it comes out to being a people person and making sure you don't forget your roots, making sure you don't forget who actually you go to DC to represent. Again, it should never be about the person. It should be about the people that elected you, because at the end of the day, everyone who's a constituent is my boss. And every bill and legislation that I introduce and gets passed into law not only affects people in CD7, but it's going to affect everyone nationwide. And that's the key. That's the key why I'm running. People have asked me, Allek, why didn't you run for state house, state senate, so on and so forth? Because of the issues that happened with Roe. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that we were able to secure reproductive rights in the state of Florida, but people in Texas, people in Virginia, other or not Virginia, but other red states are not secured. And I don't know if I can sleep at night with that, knowing that Florida's taken care of, but other states are not. We need to make sure, and I know I'm sidetracking here, kind of rambling, but we need to make sure reproductive rights secured, her body, her choice. And making sure that we make it into the 20th Amendment and push forward. So
Thank you. That was an awesome response. Does anyone else have any other questions for Allek? Caleb?
Hey, Alec.
hey, Caleb.
I just made back home, so I'm live right on the St. Johns River. And for me, especially this summer, I've been really looking at hurricane season because I've been told it's been really bad. I guess I just want to know what's like your general policy on like disaster relief, especially the environmental impact that's going to be affected within our district.
Yeah, I mean, great question. When it comes to disaster relief, we need to make sure that FEMA's taking care of from a financial standpoint, because when it comes to anybody really needing something, we need to make sure that the federal government is there to step in when it's needed. When disaster occurs, first responders need to act. And those first responders will have to be taken care of as well, not only from a financial standpoint, but making sure that their families are taken care of, in reference to how can they go out there and start saving lives if they have to worry about their families as well. Environmental standpoint, from that aspect, we just got to make sure that we have the as of right now, just the proper messaging in place, making sure that people follow the guidelines when it comes to if an evacuation order is issued, that we make sure that people get evacuated, and that we have standby teams just in case that worst case scenario, someone can act upon when necessary. I want to make sure that we have the resources in place to make sure that the resources in place to make sure that first responders have the tools they need to be successful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Allek?
Yes. I'm trying to figure out a way to say it without sounding, I guess, petty. But what separates you from your other candidates? I'm seeing how we do have a Democratic primary in CD7 compared to our neighbors in CD6, where they have one candidate who is the only candidate. So what separates you from your competitors for this race?
Great question. Great question. So, I bring dedication, trustworthiness, compassion, tenacity as your future representative for Congressional District 7. Listen, my primary points have essentially neglected Volusia County. They haven't even been to a DEC meeting. I don't understand how you can run for office and not show up to your DEC meetings. And it's not like there's other meetings during that time frame. It's on the fourth Monday of every month. SEMDEMs, you can skip around because there's SEMDEMs, there's the Southwest Club, and the Port Orange Club all have meetings on the second Thursday of the month. So that's 3 clubs that I have to alternate between. But you can ask anybody, call any DEC, call Seminole County, call Volusia County, ask them, who do you see the most out there? Who's the one that's always showing up to events? There's only one name that's going to be there. And, I just, again, it brings back to the dedication portion. I'm dedicated to not only going out there and making sure that I talk to people, but it's gonna reflect once I get elected. Once I get elected, I'll be, the whatever time I have to be in DC. They say essentially 6 months there, 6 months at home. I'm not gonna go, on vacation and stuff, or escape to Mexico like a Texas senator did once. No, like I'm gonna have my vacations planned like I do now. Take vacations just like any normal person. But when there's disaster that occurs and stuff that happens, I'm gonna make sure that I'm there for the constituents. I'm gonna make sure that they come first. If I'm on vacation and there's a hurricane that's hitting, I'm not leaving. I'm gonna make sure that one, constituents taken care of, my family's taken care of, and then go from there. We can go on vacation after the hurricane. So that's what sets me apart from my competition right now, is the dedication, the willingness to show up, not just to send a representative, to actually show up. And I'm the only one that's made all of our candidate forums. They haven't.
Thank you for that.
Awesome. Is there any other questions that anyone has for Allek?
I've got one. I'm Nathan, by the way. I think it may be showing as either all caps Despacito or my phone number, but
It's your
is
phone.
Nate.
Shows your phone number.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So obviously, you know your own strength as a candidate, specifically in this primary. You know, you're out there, you're out on the field. But once you get into Congress, there's going to be a great degree of necessity in working with people that you may not necessarily agree with. And obviously there's going to be Republicans, but there also will, I'm sure, be Democrats within that, group of people at times.
Mhm.
So I wanted to know if you could list a relative strength that your primary opponent has, or at least something that, she brings to the table that's worth noting and that you may admire in that kind of primary opposition.
A strength, that primary opponent. Let's see. One of them is consistent, and what I mean by that is, she's consistent at leaving every time I speak. So that's a primary strength, I guess. Something I admire about either one of them. I mean, that's a good question. I haven't thought about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Or Nathan, did you say thank you that I guess you're satisfied with that answer? Or do you want me to continue?
No, I just meant thank you for that it's a good question. If you have something you'd like to continue, but I'm happy to hear it.
One is mysteriously been able to fundraise me. I guess that's a strength. I say mysterious because her FEC reports are not accurate. I don't know. The other one just doesn't show up anywhere, so it's kind of difficult to say a strength or something I admire about somebody that doesn't show up to places. So I guess those are the two things: just consistency of leaving as soon as I speak, and consistency of being inaccurate. I gotta tell the truth on that. So, yep.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Is there any other questions anyone has for Allek? Awesome. Then I guess my last question is, Allek, I understand you mentioned Ted Cruz. Are you the Zodiac killer? Kidding, don't answer that. My real question is, is there anything else that you think that voters should know about your campaign going into August?
Yeah, no, great question. More about my campaign is again, it's been a rough journey. I've entered this campaign in literally January of last year, and have been running nonstop, ever since. One of the things that people sometimes measure individuals on is how much money they can raise, instead of asking, is that person a good person, right? I'm one that hates asking for money. The whole political spectrum of asking for money, I know this is a necessity, but it shouldn't have to be this way. You shouldn't have to have or raise, $1 million just to be considered a legitimate candidates. and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate our day to day. But once I get in, that's something that I plan on looking at changing. You know, I know it's not going to affect uh, constituents per se, but the simple fact that we need campaign finance reform, you know, get rid of dark money, get rid of, you know, stuff of that nature, and being transparent is ideal when it comes to the government. It's what it was instilled into me by my dad. You know, my dad retired from the Bureau of Prisons. He was an accountant. One penny under, one penny over, he would have to find that penny from an accounting standpoint. He also told my friends in high school that were interested in being in accounting, don't do it because he hated it. But that was his job in the military, so that was his job in the Bureau of Prisons. And you know, again, he retired, gets a pension now, so he's golden right now. Campaign wise, you know, Puerto Rican, soy boricua, so si necesitan que diga algo en español o si tienen preguntas en español también, me pueden llamar al 407-404-0215. If anyone needs any more information of my stances on a campaign, you can reach me at 407-404-0215. You can go to voteallek.com. And you know, next time you go vote, you know, look for Pastrami on the box. If you can't remember my full last name, Pastrana, just look for Pastrami. You know, check it off and vote for me. So again, I bring dedication, trustworthiness, compassion, and accountability to the position, and that's why I feel like I'm the best candidate for this role. So.
Awesome. So we wanted to take the time to thank you so much for coming. Like I mentioned earlier in the call, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Since, you know, there's like 3 candidates in this race, we just wanted to make sure that all of our members have an opportunity to hear from everyone, especially for a lot of our folks. I know Gavin's a first-time voter. So just having that means a lot more than you know. So thank you again so much for taking time. Like I said, I know you've done like millions of candidate forums, but we appreciate you taking time in the evening on a Monday to come and speak to our members and Seminole County's members as well.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I
sorry.
was gonna sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say, you know, and I'll be happy to do a million more. And you know, once elected, to be doing town halls. You know, every time we're back in the district, so on and so forth. Because you know, hearing from you guys, that's what matters. Hearing, you know, your feedback, positive, negative, doesn't matter. That's the point. The point is to hear your feedback. So that's you know, I'm looking forward to doing the countless town halls in different places, doing stuff for veterans. You know, just again, just hearing the feedback is what matters. So hopefully I do a good job once I get in there and I do you guys proud. So
Awesome. Thank you again, Alec, for joining us. And everyone that's here, everyone watching at home, not live, please join us tomorrow. We'll be joined by Jennifer Adams and then Tatiana Fernandez on August 7th. So thank you again, and hope to see you for the next 2 candidate interviews.